the Inner Game podcast, brought to you by the Science of Excellence, presented by Rob Hume, the leading elite athlete mental performance coach. Unleash your power.
Boom. So welcome onto the Inner Game podcast, Amy Williams. Coming onto the show today, we have somebody who has certainly broken down barriers in sport, certainly British Winter Olympic sport. Back in 2010, Amy achieved something that hadn't been done for 30 years, I believe it was, a gold medal for Team GB in the Winter Olympics since the 1980, I think. She won silver medal in the World Championships, and this is all in the event of the skeleton. And I remember watching you doing your thing. What's that? 12 years ago. 12 years ago.
Yeah, 12 years ago.
And I just remember it being such a huge moment. You doing what you did, and it's a bit crazy that you're actually here having a chat with me about all that. So thank you very much, Amy, for giving up your time to come on and have a chat and impart some of your wisdom on what you did and how you coped with all the different challenges over those years. So thanks a lot.
Pleasure. I'm looking forward to our chat, actually. I think I'm going to learn more from you than you from me.
So how did it all start for you? Because I've got a funny feeling that, you know, as a young girl, you weren't probably thinking, I want to be a gold medalist in the skeleton. I'd imagine it probably didn't start like that for you. How did your journey into sport begin for you, Amy?
Yeah, no, not at all. I don't even remember ever dreaming about, I want to win an Olympic medal. I mean, for me, I just grew up in a very active family. I've got a twin sister and a brother who's just a year and a half older. And we were very much just always outside. We didn't have a TV, didn't have computer games, didn't have phones back then. And that was it. It was an active lifestyle. It was every Sunday, going for a walk in the afternoon with, my dad finding some 2-3 hour walk, and holidays were, youth hosteling around Wales or whatever. It was always just outside, fresh air, healthy, outdoor, good old fashioned playing.
Yeah.
And then, we kind of, we did swimming lessons. We did a little bit of competitions as sort of younger ages. And then, at school, I did everything, athletics, whatever was thrown at me, whatever we did. Well, they're saying that at school, it was just hockey, one term of tennis, I think, netball, athletics.
Yeah.
And then it was athletics that sort of captured me more. The sprinting, the running, all the running events, actually. And so I joined an athletics club, local one to Bath, where I still live now. And that was kind of twice a week, Tuesday night, Thursday night. Parents would drop us off at the University of Bath on the athletics track. And that's really the love. That was the love of sport, the love of training, of competition. And, as a kind of teenager, it went from twice a week to 3 times a week to 4 times a week. And probably by the age of 16, 17, I was training 4 times a week, regularly competing, throughout the whole athletics competitions, and just really loving it.
Yeah. And so how long did you stick with the athletics, and how far did that take you in that sport before you kind of transitioned across?
Yeah, true. Completely forgot to say about that. So for me, athletics was that 17, 18-year-old, and I knew I was trying to do 400 meters. And I just knew I wanted to do 400 because to me that was just like brutal. That was like the one sprint all the way around. And I just was never able to quite do all of that longer distance endurance stuff, because at this point I was starting to get like shin splints compartment syndrome, and I had a lot of pain down my shins that I was potentially going to have to go and get them operated on. And so I kind of stopped and was like, right, okay, I actually am not good enough. I'm good in my county, I'm good in my school area, you know, I'm good at all of that West of England sort of area. But that next step of representing England or whatever, I knew I wasn't good enough. So my eyes started wandering about what other sport could I do?
Yeah.
And it just so happened, I mean, I remember watching the Salt Lake City Winter Olympics, 2002, February. And I remember watching them, and they had actually just built a start track for bobsleigh and skeleton at the university for those Olympics, for the athletes to train that bent over push start. Right. But my brain wasn't in that connection. Oh, I've watched these Olympics now, let's have a go. It was only later on in the summer of 2002 that I just happened to speak to some people in the gym. They happened to do bobsleigh skeleton. Oh, you're about to go and have a go, are you? Can I come along and have a look? Can I watch? Can I have a go? Okay. I'm not that bad at this. And they were about to go off and compete at the World Push Championships in Holland, in Groningen. So this was the summer of 2002. And I just asked the performance director, who had just come on at the time, could I go out and compete? And he said, yeah, go out, compete in the B category as a guest for Great Britain, you know, get yourself out there. Yeah, off you go. And so I did. I paid my way, joined, you know, went however many trains across to get to Holland. And I won my category and came second overall. You know, it was like, oh, why don't you have a go on the real thing, on the ice? And so having decided to change my university degree specifically so I could stay in Bath, get my student loan, to all these choices before I had even had a go on the track. Yeah. But I knew I kind of like, when it's based in Bath, I need some money to be able to pay to join an army ice camp, a military ice camp in October of 2002, 2 weeks in Norway, off you go, see if you like it or not. Yeah. And so that's what I did. I did not love it to begin with. But, you know, the addiction of, I could be really good at this, and it's a shorter sprint. Yeah, that's where it just sort of took over. And then, as you know, so at the end of every quad, every Olympic cycle, people retire out. So there was sort of a little bit more of an empty hole, a bit of a gap that, especially for the females, there was no one really there. Yeah. That you thought, I could definitely compete for Great Britain pretty quickly and fill this gap and get myself into this sport. And at that point, I just really wanted to represent my country. That was the goal. That was the aim, to wear that Union Jack flag and to compete for Great Britain.
Awesome. And am I remembering correctly that before you won the gold in that event, was there a British lady that got a medal?
Yes, so in those Salt Lake City Winter Olympics, we won a bronze medal. A lady called Alex Coomber, who was in the RAF. Right. In the 4 years after that, it was then Shelley Rudman, and we were sort of, you know, on the same. So we both started at the same time, and we had one place for to compete there, and that was a silver medal. And then fast forward then the 4 years. So we've won an Olympic medal in every Olympics since 2002, bar this last Winter Olympics. Well, let's not mention that.
Let's not mention that. So, so there was obviously there was like a culture, you know, something was developing in that particular event, wasn't there? Like that was leading up to you getting that gold, essentially.
Yes. I mean, Simon Timpson, who was the performance director that came on, he was the first one to create that basically performance pathway, that triangle system of, right, you know what, every single competition you have to perform, you have to work your way up. If you don't get results, if you don't perform, you're pretty much kicked off the team. So it was a real kind of a culture of performance, a culture of having to, you know, execute your goals, your plans, get the results in order to maintain your position and your place. So it was quite, you just knew you couldn't slack, you couldn't sit around, you weren't going to miss a session. You know, it was internal to be able to always perform. And it worked.
Yeah. So when was it that you first represented Great Britain in this event then? What
almost straight away, to be honest. pretty much learnt on the job. Back in 2002, there was no funding. It was very much self-funded. There was a little bit coming on in, and Simon Simpson and the people then were very like, right, we need to get lottery funding. We need to get UK sport. We need to get government funding. Like, the sport didn't really have any back then. It was all traditionally military funded. So, a lot of us, I moved back home, saved money. I got a job. I would be in the gym at 6 o'clock in the morning and then go to work until 4 o'clock and then go back to the gym, earning as much money as you could to be able to contribute, a huge chunk of money to be able to, compete, race, travel around the world. But certainly in those first few years, it might have been 1 or 2 weeks in Calgary, and then you come home for 3 or 4 weeks, and then you fly back out and come home. So it was the odd week here and there, because there wasn't the money to do anymore. I think we once calculated what took me 4 to 5 years of runs down a track took like Lizzie Arnold, who got her 2 gold medals. She did the same amount of runs in her first year or two.
Oh.
So the kind of fast track speed to the more money, being able to be out there for 6 months pretty much, training every single day was very much fast tracked. But that's the way it was for quite a few years until, the money got increased and, you as an athlete got lottery funding and your race results were better and better and better for you to be able to work less, train more, and have that flip over.
And so it was roughly 8 years then, pretty much from start to getting that gold medal. Is that pretty much roughly the timeline then?
Yeah, no, for sure. It took a lot of hard grit in those first few years. And then the Turin Winter Olympics in 2006, we knew we just had one place. And it was the top ranked girl, and I was second ranked. So I went out as reserve.
Right.
And for me, that was a real turning point for me. That shifted everything.
Really?
Of 100% promising myself. I was so close to going. I'm never going to watch another Olympics. My feet will be on the start line. And so for me, it was a real, every decision of every day was, will this make me go to Olympics? Yes or no? You pretty much had that Olympic date in Vancouver. The date was there in the diary, you got 4 years time, roughly on this week, February, end of February, 2010, there will be a skeleton race. And, as we got better as a nation, we knew that we would qualify 2 girls.
Yeah.
I knew I had to be top 2 ranked girl and I'd get to go. And so, it was a very much, I have 4 years to dedicate my whole life, every decision of every day to then get to those Olympics.
That was one of my later questions was, did you ever have like a defining moment, a pivotal moment where something shifted and changed, which changed the direction of your life, kind of in sport? Was it that moment there then, would you say?
Yeah, it really was. I mean, I went off of our kind of little few weeks off after those Olympics, so to speak. I went off to Australia. I traveled around and stayed with actually the other skeleton bobsleigh girls and guys who were really close friends of mine. Took a few weeks out and then came back from that like, right, this is it, head down. And, the blinkers went on. That was it. I was never going to miss an Olympics, or, if I did miss it or didn't make the team, it would have been not from lack of giving it your absolute all. I really, it did shift a lot. And I think probably everyone does have that little bit of a moment.
That was, I spent one of the things that I did in trying to get inside the mind of people like you to figure out what you did and how you did it was just their autobiographies, reading about, it's the close, without ever meeting like this or meeting them. That was the closest way of trying to understand kind of people's transitions from, young kid to superstar or whatever. And the thing that comes back time and time and time again is that all these great athletes they've struggled. They've had setbacks. They've had moments where it could have gone the other way, where for some people that could have been the end, or for them, but one of the keys that I certainly came across was that in those moments right there, when that happens, those talented athletes that have that same amount of ability that don't go on to achieve it, they stop at that point. It became too much. Whereas instead, these other people, the Michael Jordans, the Amy Williams, the Daley Thompsons, these type of people, it's at that pivotal moment where they use it as a chance to grow even more. I've got to do more. I've got to become something else. I've got to change something. I've got to find another way. I've got to grind at another level. And that seems like that's what happened for you there.
Yeah. Sorry, my book is not an autobiography. I've gone for tips and lessons. I think it is so true. I think for me, it just put that absolute fire and passion in my belly to do everything of every decision of every day. And to find, well, where am I going to get those little 1%? How am I going to improve every single little area of my life to be the very, very best athlete that I can be? My book does go through that. I go through all the different chapters and say what I did and what other athletes have done and go through it all. So, how can I improve my sleep, my life, my nutrition, my equipment? How can I learn more? How can I improve my strength, my pushing, my psychology, absolutely everything. And what am I going to do to get better? Every single one. And how am I going to do that every day? And I think everyone probably rightly say as well, it's a very selfish life. When you get to that point, you are blinkered. You do everything for you to be the best athlete that you can be. And you don't want to, you miss out on a lot. You miss out on going out and parties and nights out, which is hard, in your early mid-20s or whatever. But actually, who cares? I need to be in bed by 9:30, 10 o'clock, lights out. It doesn't matter what day it is. It doesn't matter if it's, someone's birthday or whatever. Everyone just learned Amy's on the orange juice and she's 9:30 and she's in bed by 10, boom. And I think you do that because you need to get into the gym and give it your 100% the next day. You don't want to be fuzzy from alcohol. So, I didn't drink. I didn't eat anything bad for me. It was very much, I will only put things in my body that are good for me, my muscles, my recovery. Otherwise, what's the point? I think, that is something quite similar with a lot of athletes, whether they take it to the same extreme levels. Some it works for some and others don't want to do it like that. But for me, that's what I needed to do.
I guess in doing that, you're ruling out all the question mark. The more of those facets of things that, I guess you broke down performance, what affects my performance, and maybe listed these things. I think it's this, like you said, sleep, nutrition, whatever it may be. And then, right, what can I do to improve that and that and that and that? And then you're going to, if something went wrong, then that you'd given attention to all those things. And then if you still didn't get it, you can either go, well, I've given it everything, or it was a case of, well, what did I miss? So at least, you had a way of like quantifying what kind of wasn't going right or wrong, I guess.
Yeah. And for me, I wasn't the most confident athlete at all. I know I wasn't, and my coaches knew I wasn't the most confident. And so when I did get a chance to work with a sports psychologist before the Olympics in the year before, we were allowed like the odd hour here and there. We worked out that for me, actually doing all those little tick boxes, knowing I'd done all of those things daily, weekly, monthly, that's what gave me my confidence. So I knew that I could stand on that start line thinking, okay, I've done everything physically possible to do my very best performance here. And if that performance is only second, third, fourth, fifth, that's my very best, because I've done every tick box every day to be able to stand here on the start line. And you're always going to give it your best. You're not going to go into a race and only half-heartedly do it. So that's for me how I gave myself confidence, just to be able to take that deep breath and just think, okay, I've done everything. What's going to happen now is going to be the best that I can do.
Yeah. I mean, I find, and anybody watching this, I'm sure, or surely, many people watching this would find it almost unbelievable that, you yourself are saying that you weren't necessarily that confident. So somebody who's saying that they weren't that confident would go on and achieve, the pinnacle. So, if somebody who doesn't have the confidence can do that, then what can everyone else do, if you know what I mean? Like, sometimes you just gotta go beyond the feeling, haven't you? And there's certainly things that I did over the years to test myself. And you have, those doubts, you have those moments where you don't think you can do it, but it's about, as I say, still going ahead anyway, and not letting that voice inside your head, those doubts, those insecurities, those fears, not letting that be the thing that puts the brakes on, on doing what you want to do. And I think all too often in life in general, that, people stop at the feelings, people stop at the doubts, and you just got to keep finding a way to get through. And you were able to find that way through by creating kind of, structure, and a plan.
Yeah. And I think, you just have to be super honest with yourself, be very self-aware, and be like, okay, well, why am I not confident? Is it the self-doubt? Is it the bad voices in your head? For me, I focused a lot on what other athletes were doing. And I only learned this over time and sort of come into realizing that kind of year before the Olympics, I was dubbed training champion by my coach, basically, because I was always getting track records in training, being the fastest one. And yet I'd stand on the start line on race day and I would never win. I was always second. I was always third. And, that kind of got to me like, well, why don't I win? Like, everyone else ups their game even more. And I'm super consistent. And I prepared my sled in the same way, and my equipment, same way in training as I would on race day. Because for me, I just wanted the consistency.
Yeah.
And I always felt like, why on earth do they always find this extra half a second? And they're upping it even more and I'm not. And that got really frustrating and obviously ate away at the confidence. And so, my focus started like, well, what are they doing? What are they warming up? You're always looking at other people. What do they do when they're whatever, And it took a long time to make me realize, stop comparing, stop looking, be confident in your performance and who and what you're doing. And they're looking at you, you've got the best start time in the world. You're always in that top 3. Like you're a really good athlete. And then, and I think when you realize, if you stop looking at their start times, if you stop looking at their times down the track or whatever, someone else's swimming times, or stop looking at what they're lifting in the gym, are you happy with your performance? Have you executed your goals that you wanted to do that session, those process goals? Did I do those things? And did I get good feedback from my coach? Yes, I did. Okay, well then be happy. Yeah. Don't think about what the other people have done, because you've done what you needed to do. And I think for me, it was about learning that you need to switch the kind of emotional side of things to the facts and the data. And I talk quite a lot of this in one of my chapters in my book, actually, in my mindset chapter. And it was about, don't believe everything that you think and feel. Look at the facts, the figures, the data in front of you. And if the data says you're fast, you're whatever, sometimes you are going to feel crap about yourself. And is that just because you're focused on the other athletes and not you? And so I think it was just becoming this very self-aware, realizing what works for you, what doesn't work for you, controlling those negative thoughts, the positives, looking at the facts and the data rather than the emotional. And as soon as you become sort of your own sort of self-critic, your own teacher, working out what actually is quite simple stuff, but at the time it's not.
When you're in it.
This has taken me years and years to learn, and yet it seems really simple when I'm saying it now, which is why, I wanted to write my book to be able to say to people, like, actually do these things now when you're a teenager, become really aware of all these tips and lessons and practical tools that you can do. Just have a notebook with you and write down your thoughts and feelings before your race or competition or game, and then how you perform. And then, like, were you happy afterwards? And, just writing your feelings down, and then think, oh, actually, next competition or next match or game, I'm going to read what I last thought about myself and then use that to be able to help myself. And again, gain that confidence and to realize you're a good athlete. Like, come on, like, back yourself here.
Yeah, you said a few things there. Like one of the things that came out from that is there's been a lot of studies done on the reliability of memory. I think it's a Harvard study, and they say at best, 50%, of what you remember about a memory, only 50% of it is even true. So just because you are remembering something, it doesn't even mean that what you're remembering is the actual truth. It's a version of the truth. It's a representation of it. And one of the things that the mind does, it's taken in so much information. It can't deal with all of it, so it has to take it and compact it. So it deletes information, it distorts information, and it generalizes information. And one of the things that I spend a lot of my time doing working with athletes is like unpicking like what they are deleting out of their like conscious memory about themselves, about the events. What generalizations they're making about themselves, which ultimately turn into like the beliefs that they have, I'm not good at this or whatever. And then when you break it down and you get to the roots of that weed about that belief, it's because of one thing that happened once and they're excluding these other 50 times that they did it right. But because at this one time it happened maybe in a pivotal moment and it was a very emotional one.
Yeah.
Mind holds onto that, and then it clouds their judgment about themselves, their memories, their capabilities, and all those things. And that's what was coming through my mind there when you was talking about that. And the other thing was, that comparison. I think in today's world, just generally, I think it's such a dangerous game to play. It's a world that people have got trapped into, the whole social media thing, just constantly comparing yourself to somebody else, somebody that's living a life that's not even the real life. It's what they're putting out there. But the same in performance again. Just I was working with a footballer who he would just kind of beat himself up about his performances, and it was making kind of assumptions about himself, about how he performed. And then he went back and started looking at videos of himself performing. And then when it was some time later, he looked back and looked at himself. It's like, after that game, I thought I was awful. I had this shocking game. And I've looked back at it. I was like, I was absolutely amazing in that game. I was like, I can't believe that I believed that about myself. That's how challenging it is at times to go beyond what the mind is actually doing. It plays these tricks on us and kind of lies to us ourselves at times. And you got to find without any specific guidance, you just, sometimes people are just going to work their way through it themselves. But as you are doing with your book and what I'm trying to do with what I'm doing, is there are ways to go beyond those doubts, beyond those fears, beyond nerves. It's important that people know that you can get through that sort of thing. And even though, as you said, you struggle with confidence, at times that you still went ahead and like did all of these things. So it doesn't have to be like I'm not a very confident person, so it stops there.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, totally. And I think people always think that actually, you know, I'm majorly extroverted and super confident and all the rest of it. I'm like, actually, no, I'm actually naturally really introverted and very, very shy and not confident. And I don't big myself up, and I, you know, always kind of fear the worst or whatever. And I think through the lessons that I learned leading up to Vancouver, you know, I had to work really hard to shift things around and be happy with my performance, a bit like your footballer that you just said. You know, for me, sometimes when you're sliding, you have the most beautiful run down the track. It feels amazing. And actually, you're quite slow. You've ended up doing a bit too much, steering too much, overdriving, and it slows you down. Other times you can just feel like it's really messy. It didn't feel great. You're really annoyed with yourself. And then you're like, oh, actually, that was really quick. And just to be happy in that time, just be happy with the speed at the bottom that you came second or third. You might, you know, not be happy with it yourself, but stop beating yourself up. Like, the race is over now, done. You've got a medal. So I think, yeah, sometimes you just have to sit back, pat yourself on the back and say, good job. Like, you executed what you needed to have done in whichever situation. And I think for me, I would always move my goalposts. So my psychologist sort of realized, well, Amy, you're never happy. You know, you weren't happy with that second place because you know you made mistakes and that you should have won. Or, you know, if you hadn't made those mistakes, you would have won. But stop moving the goalposts because you executed the certain corners that you wanted to do and you drove your knees forward in your push, and that's what one of your goals were. So just park it, pat yourself, and stop shifting the goalposts without almost congratulating yourself, because that's just what we do, isn't it? We still always find fault. And I think it's a big athlete thing, is to always ask your coach, well, what did I do wrong? How can I improve? Every day you lift a weight in the gym in a squat session. Yeah. Okay, well, they're always picking up, you know, your technique. Okay, well, how can I get better? How can I lift more? How can I improve myself? And so you're constantly striving to be better and better and better. That's just the life of an athlete almost, is looking for the negatives, push them into a positive. And sometimes, you know, well, we're our own worst kind of critic, because actually, no, just be happy about that. You've done enough. Like, yeah. Like,
I ask this a lot in terms of, you know, how certainly to the athletes that are still competing are in the middle, or they're still trying to do what they do, and often they can't, or they're not allowing themselves to be kind of grateful and appreciative to what they've already done. Like, it's almost like they can't let it in because they haven't got what they wanted yet. I'm just curious to know if you think that is that the right way to approach it? Because, you know, is the right way to approach, you know, your career in sports, like at the end when it's all done and then look back. But when I think about it, when people are talking about that, I think, well, you're missing some of the sweetness of what you're doing along the way. And I'm just curious as to what you think about that. Should you stop a little bit more and reflect and like kind of acknowledge, yeah, I have done this, and I have done this, and I have done all these things? Or do you think it is right to not let that in until it's done, and then you're looking back when all's said and done?
I think if I knew what I knew now as an athlete, then no, I think you do need to every now and again take stand and look back and look at your achievements. You do need to, and to tell yourself, actually, I've done really well. I've come from this to that and the next step up and the next step. I think we do need to do that. Obviously, you're always still striving for perfection, and you're still striving to be the very best and stronger and faster and all the rest of it. But there's nothing stopping you, you know, once or twice a year And I mean, that's what we did in skeleton. Twice a year, at the start of every winter season, at the end of every winter season, we'd all gather and do, reviews, analysis, SWOT analysis stuff, all of that stuff. And we would, write down those new goals. We would evaluate everything and see how far we had come and also where we wanted to go in the future. Yeah. And that was twice a year. And so everyone within the team would do that. And automatically you then had your goals, whether that was for us on every single track in the world. Again, for me, I made my life into a pie chart, like we said right at the beginning, and said, right, how am I going to improve all these different areas of my life? And I'll do a SWOT analysis for every area, rank where I think I am in each one of those sort of pies. And, you then have something that you could really look back on, see your progress, tick boxes. Okay, I've now done this. I can see how far I've come. And yeah, I do think you do need to do that, because we all need to feel like we've achieved, even if, when you, for example, have a big failure and setback, whether that's having an injury, for example, one of the worst things you could have as an athlete is being injured. And you're always feeling really miserable, and you're doing all your rehab, and the rest of your team are getting faster and stronger, and you're barely hobbling along on crutches or whatever it might be. When you come back from that injury and you think, well, look how far I've come. Like a year ago, I was hobbling on crutches, and a year, later, I'm sprinting a PB. Like I'm pretty chuffed with myself to be able to do that. And for me, I would always come out of injury so much stronger mentally, physically. There's so many things that you can do even when you're injured. Yeah. Can I study the tracks? Can I study other people? Can I look back at video footage? Can I learn from different races, watching, race footage on YouTube or TV or whatever? How can I get myself better even though I've got one dodgy leg? And I think, even that's a simple way of looking back and being proud how far you've come as an athlete. And that, there is always a better positive time, even though you might have highs and lows and highs and lows.
You just mentioned something there. And what's the name of the program? Is it the Dawn? Not the Dawn Wall. It's have you seen the Amazon Prime documentary about the climb free solo? Have you seen that?
I've not seen it, but I've heard about it. It's on my list, actually.
Definitely get to that. But one of the things when you were talking there reminded me of that, in that the way that this guy prepared to go up that wall, which I had no idea that they were doing that. He would have like notes of exactly how he was going to climb that wall. He would sit in his caravan or camper van, before he'd go and train or practice on it, and he would have them. Everything was just written down, listed. I'm going to, approach the wall here, make this move there, that. But then he would leave it, and he would put it in his head, and he was visualizing himself going up that rock face. Bear in mind, he's going up 3,000 feet with no rope, which is set up a wall that many people can't even climb with a rope. And it really struck home how he was using, visualization. He had climbed that wall countless times in his head. He knew every move, every rock. It was ingrained into his mind. And I'm wondering, were you having to do the same thing with the turns and everything like that? Was that something that you had, a process that you went through?
Yeah, 100%. So generally when let's just say you're in a World Cup race, you have 6 runs, 2 runs a day, 3 days, and then you race. Two runs, and that's your race. So you have 6 runs to learn up to 19 corners. Every track is different, left and right. Imagine your Formula One. There's tracks all around the world. They're all left and rights. Cries or 360s thrown in. And you've got to learn, the profile of the corners, how the ice is on it, the entrances, the exits. For us, how many oscillations, so how many natural highs, lows, high, low in each corner. So when you watch a skeleton race, we just try and make lovely smooth, clean, one line round. If it was a beginner, they'd be looping up and down, which is obviously a longer way around a corner. We want to make it short. And yeah, we would do track walks. You're only allowed certain track walks at certain times.
Right.
That's up to the track. Let's just say we're in East Germany on an East German track. They might say, right, you can have a track walk on day 1. You might be able to get one on the end of day 3. And then it will be race day or whatever. So yeah, you do that track walk. We study the ice. We make notes. We lie on the track. We look. We get our eyes really close. We're shutting our eyes. We're doing that mental imagery. We're running through every single corner. Some people like to walk from the bottom of the track to up, and some people like to walk top to bottom.
Yeah,
I always like top to bottom.
That makes sense.
It makes sense, doesn't it? But the bobsleigh athletes always liked it the other way around. Anyway, never understood that. But yeah, you'd run through corner 1, corner 2. Now I'm going back through 1 and 2. Now I'm at 3. So I run through 1, 2, 3. Yeah. And all these different scenarios. So actually, if I come out of this corner a little bit too much to the right, what would I be doing to try and still get into the next corner in the position that I want? Knowing that this is split seconds. We're traveling maybe 80, 90 miles per hour. So for me, I would always have my ideal plan A, plan B, plan C. Oh crap, plan D. Like, how am I going to get back onto that perfect line and position in as little turns as possible? And that's where a good athlete, can they get the perfect line back only within 1 or 2 corners? Or is it actually going to have a knock-on effect 5 corners down because they haven't managed to take control of what went wrong? And all of this is peripheral vision because we normally can't see. There's 4 to 5 G's of pressure, a few meters up, being stuck to the wall. Your head is right onto the ice. You're working with peripheral vision, with feeling in your body, the pressures, maybe lights and darks flashing. If you're coming in and out of covers, if maybe the cover's down on the track. So much sensory sounds. You're listening. Are you cutting the ice? Are you skidding and you'll hear the ice? Are you dropping out of a corner? What did it sound like?
Awesome.
So much stuff. And then at the bottom of the run, once you've slid, straight away you're writing notes. Okay, what did I do? What went wrong? What happened in corner 8? How did I go into corner 9? And how did I come out of corner 9? Did I manage to do the steers that I wanted to do? And then on top of that, you might watch people. So I took every opportunity to sit on the side of the track. So there might be a session after you. Normally the World Cup, you'd be split into 2 sessions if it was quite a lot of athletes.
Yeah.
So you might rock up a few hours earlier to be able to sit on every entrance and exit of every corner, watching the lines, watching the angles, trying to see how they come in, come out. Because all of that is more than your 6 times down the track to be able to learn. Formula One, they get 100, 150 laps as qualifying before they actually race.
Yeah.
And even in the race, they get hundreds. We get 6. And then the race day, it's just 2 runs, and both those runs get added up. So you can't drop your worst run. They just get added up.
Right.
And on an Olympic race or a World Championships, it's over 2 days. So you still only get those 6 days, 6 runs to learn. And then you race over 2 days, 2 runs, 1, go to sleep, wake up, do the next 2, and they all get added up.
Crikey. So, you're just trying to gather as much.
So it's all mental imagery. I can shut my eyes now and I can see every corner of, summer's a bit fuzzy now, but I can see every corner of every track and I can run through it and I can see where I'd want to be. I can feel it. I can sense it.
And did your sports psychologist help you get in tune with that to create that internal map of what was actually external? Did you have somebody that helped you do that, or was this something that you just intuitively started doing yourself? She didn't actually. We were probably working on too many other things in the limited time that we had before the Olympics. And actually we didn't really have a sports psychology
throughout my other years because there was no money for it. So it is definitely that kind of mental imagery is what you're taught from day one. You know, you just have to do it, especially as a nation who doesn't have our own track. So, you know, we have to learn really quickly. You know, we don't have a track in Great Britain, so we need to be able to go to all those tracks around the world and learn fast.
Yeah.
The Germans have had hundreds and hundreds of runs. The Canadians on the tracks have had hundreds and hundreds of runs. And, you know, we haven't. So it is learn from some sort of day one.
Yeah.
And, you know, for me, it was just, just learning yourself and going above and beyond and thinking, how can I improve and what do I need to do, and doing research and seeing how much more you can learn yourself. And because we just didn't have the coaching, you know, we didn't have that in my era. Now, you know, they're taught in lessons. You know, you're literally sat down and you're taught, this is the science of a corner and this is what happens. And, you know, it's very, very different now if you come into the sport of skeleton with the research, the development, the funding, you know, the coaching staff that's around. It's a very different world to the world that
you entered into
my path.
Do you think, it sounds like the answer to this is going to be yes, but do you think that you would have benefited from having more access to a sports psychologist or mental performance coach? Do you think this would have, I don't know, got you closer to the results that you wanted a bit faster? Do you think there would have been benefit in having more access to something like this?
Oh, yeah, totally. I think 100%. You know, I learned so much about myself in the last sort of from 2009 to 2010. And for me, the World Championships in Lake Placid, so February 2009, a whole year out from the Olympics. I got a silver medal there, but I probably learned a lot from that race. And that would have been the only time you had that 4-run race to kind of learn and learn from yourself. And I was actually quite ill at that race. I had a stomach bug. I was quite poorly. I didn't manage those 6 runs. I think I only managed 3. Can't remember actually, but I didn't manage to do them all because I just was too poorly. Yeah. I didn't want to race. I just wanted to go home. And I learned a lot because it kind of taught me that almost when I just relaxed and I couldn't care less, I just wanted to go home. I felt so ill. I didn't expect anything from myself. Yeah. It's a track that I know well, and I've always performed well on that track. It's high G-force, it's fast, and that kind of style of track suited me. But almost it was a really big lesson because it took away the pressure. I took away the care. Like, I'm not going to perform well. Who cares? I'm really ill. I haven't trained as much as everyone. You know, I just don't want to be here. I got a silver medal. And so I think, you know, it actually taught me a lot. You're good. You can perform when you don't feel well. Take away that incredible pressure that you put on yourself.
Yeah.
And poof, look, like you can stand on that start line and still be second in the world. And so that for me actually was a massive turning point as well. And I learned a lot from it to then take on for that next year, along with a sports psychologist. How can I make these little tweaks here and there to be the very best athlete when I stood in Vancouver?
Yeah. I think one of the other things that was kind of resonating with me there was one of the things that I really tried to get across with the athletes that I work with is about trusting themselves. Just trust. You got to trust yourself. You've put all these hours in, all this time and energy in working on your craft. You've then, when it comes to the moment of doing whatever it is that you're doing, you've got to hand it over to that, you know. And when you do that, that's when you enter in the flow state. Because as soon as the thoughts come in, that means that the conscious mind has come on. And as soon as the conscious analytical mind comes on, that's what starts driving anxiety, fear, and doubt. And you'll never be able to relax down. You know, that flow state is the sweet spot between this kind of intense, relaxed state of focus where you can just let out of you what is in you without having to consciously think about anything. And doubt is the killer of that, that state of mind. So I'd imagine that was the key realization there. It's like, trust yourself, give yourself a break, just do it,
Yeah, and then, for me, it comes back to those little tick boxes, It was have faith in the process, have faith for the last 4 years that you did physically everything every single day. And, have faith in your ability, know you are the best in the world. Like I knew I was, every day in training in Vancouver, I put down the fastest runs. I'd got a silver medal from the World Cup race the last year. And I think it is exactly that. The last thing I looked at for me in my little track notebook was a little laminated card with three boxes with a tick in each one. It's somewhere in my book, actually. That is the last thing I looked at. And for me, those little boxes just symbolized the process, the fact that I had done everything every day. Be confident. You've done everything. Tick, tick, tick.
Yeah.
And that was the last visual thing that I looked at to then walk out the changing room with all my stuff on, stand on the track, take a deep breath and just be like, just let everything go. Looked out at the mountain, took a big smile to myself in my helmet and, trying to tell yourself that you're not nervous, which you really are, but I'm almost sort of thinking like, you've got to enjoy this moment now, enjoy this race. You have done everything you can physically do. If I don't enjoy this moment, then what on earth have I just done?
Definitely.
My whole life, these last 4 years that I dedicated everything. And that was another thing. It took me a long time to realize that I only ever perform when I'm happy.
Yeah.
And, a lot of us with all the pressure and the tension and the weight on your shoulders, we knew we had to win a medal in those Vancouver games to keep the sport alive. We had to win a medal. Female, male, it didn't matter. It didn't matter what color. Someone had to bring home a medal to keep the sport out there. And so there was so much pressure, but obviously no bigger or greater pressure than the pressure you put on yourself to perform. So being able to just take that big, deep breath, know you had done everything and have faith in your own ability and, knowing that you've done everything possible.
How much, if you could quantify as a percentage, Amy, how much of achieving what you achieved, getting to that level of excellence, how much of it was physical and how much of it was mental? Could you try and put a percentage on what you think that it is?
Oh, the old age question, hey, that everyone wants to know. Yeah, I don't know, for me, I always feel like if you had everyone on that 100-meter start line, everyone's done the same, personal best, then obviously it's going to be the one that mentally has got it more, or the one that can control their nerves, or the one that can control the self-talk, those doubts, the positives, the negative. And all of that affects your physical.
Yes.
So, it's really hard. I made sure at least that in Vancouver, I physically was the best in the world.
Yeah.
I was, my start times were always in the top 3. I always pushed the very best, which meant, I was faster, I was stronger, all the rest of it. Everything came together at the right time. I peaked at the right time, etc. And then obviously who can hold it together, who can keep their nerve, who can control the steers, who can control the track, who can learn the track better, who can do all of those things. So there are so many elements to me of coming together when it matters to perform on that one moment on one day, like over those 4 runs. So I really do think it's both, but is it 50-50? I don't know, because I feel like it's everything coming together. Are you ever going to get the same physical athlete? I don't know. Are you,
So are you going to go 50-50 then? You're going to say it's 50?
I don't know what I am. Because, for us, if we're extra nervous, you have more tension in your body. That then goes through onto your sled. Might mean that you skid a lot more. You might forget your steers because you're not concentrating. You might have, all of the people watching and the noises and the flashing lights and all this extra stuff that really you've never practiced before as you go down that track.
Yeah.
Yes, I do think a lot of it is in the head, a lot of it in the mind, but actually, unless you're physically good, you're not going to get that sled down and you're not going to run at the top the fastest, and you need to be able to do that to win medals.
You can't get...
I don't have an answer to you. I'm going to just say, actually, I don't...
You can't get away from, if you haven't put the time into evolving your body to become the thing that it needs to become, to do what it is that you're doing in whichever sport it is. You can't take that. You can't take that away. You can't cut those corners, can you? That side of things needs to be taken care of. I think one of the things that I took from what you were saying there was that, there would have been a bunch of you that has pretty much invested the same time and energy into the training that you had done. The difference between, the amount of training that you'd done and the consistency of it and all, there would have been a few of you all there in that final for that, final in the Olympics, who had pretty much done the same amount of stuff, with give and take a few things. And in that moment then, what is it that separates those? And that's when that comes in, isn't it?
Yeah, and I think that's the thing. It has to be a little bit of everything. It really is all the little things that go unnoticed. All those sessions you rocked up 45 minutes earlier than anyone else just to do your stability exercises, to do that extra warm up that you needed to do, to all, your injury prevention, all of that stuff. Did anyone else do it? Did they? Who knows? But that glued you together and that kept you being the best athlete. And me, an Italian, and one of the Chinese girls were the only ones that did the very last track walk at 5 o'clock in the morning. Right. We were the only ones that did that. That track walk, I learned a few extra little things from one of the other coaches that we had there. Was that something that gave me that extra little thing? We were given one extra run from a few corners down because very sadly there was a death of a luge athlete a few days before us. That put, a lot of shockwaves through the whole sliding community. This track was fast. It was dangerous. The ice was a bit different. He had sadly had, a really freak accident as well and died. Yeah. And so we were allowed one extra slide from a few corners down into corner 3 on day 1. And for me, I wanted to do it. It's a big decision because you hit each corner at a different speed. So all of those perfect lines that I was talking about before aren't going to be the same because you're hitting each corner at a different speed. So different things happen. But for me, I wasn't the most confident. And every track, I'd always be terrible on the first run because I was just trying to get rid of all those nerves and that lack of confidence. I would always waste it. And, I'd almost joke with my coach, oh, wow, first run, terrible. Yes. So for me, I was like, well, I'm going to do it. And the same, me, the Italian and the Chinese girl, we were the only ones doing that extra run. Right. I got a lot of teasing from some of the other athletes, like, why would you do it? And it was hard because it makes you more tired. Every run is physically and mentally very draining. So you were putting yourself under more pressure. I would have then had 7 runs and straight into a race. So, it was a tough decision. And on the flip side, if I'm given this opportunity, I can waste my nerves on that run. Yeah. I will then go to the top of the track on that first official proper run from the top, and I will nail it. I'm not going to waste that run. Yeah. So for me, I needed to do it. I didn't want to miss an opportunity and regret it. And I remember being in the food hall after that first day, and actually the German girls who came second and third. Why did you do that? You're the best, one of the best athletes in the world. Why did you bother doing that? You didn't need to do that. was like, well, but why wouldn't I? That was an opportunity, and that's what I wanted to do. And that gave me the confidence.
As you said earlier, that 1% that was that marginal gain.
Little marginal gains. Yeah. So, I think it's learning about what works for you. And, was that little mental and physical side that gave me the edge on race day.
When you look back over what you achieved, Amy, how do you feel about it now, being up on that podium with the GB kit on and that gold medal around your neck? And how do you look back at it now?
I think a lot of people will probably say the same as what I'm about to say. It just feels like a different person. It doesn't feel like me. Like, yes, it was 12 years ago, so that is a long time, and a lot has happened since then in my life. So I wish I could relive it. I wish I wrote down then diaries of what I was feeling and thoughts. And I look back and I'm like, I'm super proud of that girl, that person, because I was always training champion. And I'm really proud that I know, my family and I know, and my coaches know how much I put into it.
Yeah.
Every day. I trained 2 to 3 times every single day. And, I did everything to that 100%. And so I think for me, I had done everything to get to that one moment in time for those 2 race days. And so I feel, it was just a massive relief. It was, I knew I could do that. I knew I could win a medal. I knew it could be gold. And every decision from missing out on Turin was for that to happen.
Yeah.
Obviously every day it was just about the process goals. I never really thought about those outcome goals. But those process goals, grinding daily, weekly, monthly, yearly. So I think I look back at pride of that I did that, and I brought home a medal for our country. I'm super patriotic, and singing that national anthem, it gives me sort of shivers in one sense. And I think it's only then every 4 years or every 2 years, summer or winter Olympics, in particular winter Olympics, that it really hits me.
Yeah.
Wow, everyone here is striving for a medal. And I get, even when I was commentating and I was working for Eurosport on these last Tokyo Olympics, there were times I was proper welling up and I was about to go live within like 20 seconds. I've literally got tears down my face because I just watched a medal ceremony and I'm like, I get super emotional because I just know what it means to that person and how much effort and hard work and that daily grind. And I can proudly say, I've got one of them. Like, I have one and I can show it to my kids and I can go into schools and inspire people. And I think it's more that now. It's that honor to be able to inspire the next generation, to be able to teach people, to say, look, this is what I did and these are my tips and lessons. And, that's why I wrote my book. It's mostly for teenage athletes, but it could be from, 12 to, actually business people have loved it, and it is like, actually this is what I did and this is what I learned and this is how I dealt with XYZ. And I interviewed about 30 other athletes and got quotes saying like, this is what I did, what did you do?
Yeah.
It's filled. And for me, that's a really amazing thing to be able to say, hey, like if you've been inspired by an Olympics and you want to achieve something, or it doesn't even have to be sport. Like, what is it that you love? Is it dancing? Is it science? Is it art? Like, these are still some of the things that could come up and these are still things that could help you. And it's just inspirational to watch anyone set that goal, set that dream, and then go and take action and go out and achieve it. Definitely.
And that's the thing that I love about sport. It's also a metaphor for life, isn't it? That you're going to get setbacks, you're going to get failures, you're going to get told no, things are not going to go your way. Life isn't always going to go the way that you want it to go, the way that you imagine it to go. But in spite of all of that, when you stick with it, when you keep striving to be a better version of yourself and being honest with yourself as well about what you are doing and what you aren't doing, and changing things, because you can just keep going ahead, but if you're missing out on things and not honest enough with yourself to address some of those things. But yeah, it's just sport, for me, as I say, I haven't achieved anything in that respect in terms of achieving anything in sport, but it has done so much for me as a kid. I was so shy, unconfident, until I realised that I could play football, and that really boosted it was the first time where I was getting praise for doing something, that just wasn't there in my life. But being able to play football gave me that confidence. And and then sport has taken me to do all these other amazing things in spite of me not achieving what I wanted to do. I've then been able to use it, in another way. So I'm also curious to know how, and you've touched on that already, how has all what you've learned in sport, how have you been able to use that outside of it, since you retired, and the things that you've done since then? How have you used sport to help you?
I think the kind of fundamental lessons I use all the time, whether that's planning, preparation, working with the TV, working live television, interviewing people, being at the bottom of the track, or suddenly someone in your ear saying you've got 2 minutes, you've got to interview this athlete. And that's performing when it matters, when, and you've planned those questions, you've made notes, you've learnt what you can, and then you go out and perform. So there's certain moments, and I'm still not the most confident because that trait is still inside of me. But then you're like, okay, I've done the best and this is what's going to happen. And everyone else says you're doing great. Okay, let's believe them. And here I go. Giving birth, crikey, being a mom, your whole pregnancy and knowing you have to give birth. And I'm going to have plan A of my ideal birth. I'm going to have plan B and plan C because of the old athlete in me. I very much approached my pregnancy and birth. I've got 2 boys. And for me, it was that. I'm like, okay, I've researched the way that I want to go down this. And I've told everyone this is my plan A. None of my plans worked. I was probably on about plan D with both my births. They wouldn't go great. And I had to accept, not going to happen. I'm not worried. I'm not stressed. I'm not going to get upset. I have to now listen to the midwives and the people all around me. Okay, this is what has to happen. And I felt, I was always very chilled out. I didn't panic. I, had that breathing control and visualization and all the things that I had learned as an athlete really came true in that hospital trying to give birth. And I laugh about it now, but I'm like, yeah, actually, another athlete friend was due to give birth. And I'm like, pretend you're an athlete. Do everything you did before you went to a competition. And it's so true. And this is so going to help you. Like, you're in a great place and all of these lessons. I'll go out and do a corporate talk to a company. Okay, I've prepped, I've prepared, I've learned what I can. If I want to, I'll visualize what the room looks like, or at least go and see, okay, where am I standing? Okay, what time do you want me to start? And then I'm quite blasé about it. I'll feed off the room, feel what I need to do and bounce off of people, have a loose plan, knowing that I've been in so many scenarios that what I thought was going to happen totally different happen, or what's been described down the phone of an event is totally not what is reality in front of me. But again, I'm not going to panic, control the controllables. That was one of my biggest mantras in sport. I can't control it, but I've got another plan. So that's fine. And I'll take a deep breath and, put a smile on the face and off I go. And so, I do use all of the lessons. And I think, there are so many lessons that transfer from sport and as a top athlete into the world of business and real life prepping your bag before you go on a day trip with 2 young kids, water, snacks, things to do, all the right clothes. It's no wonder that parents go out with like bags of stuff, because something for every eventuality with young kids, and every parent will totally understand that. So I think life and sport is part of me every day, pretty much, with those lessons that I learn.
Yeah, you can definitely see that. Definitely see that, Amy. What, last 2 questions. What's you'll have a number of superpowers, strengths, things that helped you achieve what you did in getting that gold medal. But if you could put it down to one thing, what was your number one superpower? This one thing that you really did that separated yourself from the rest. And then this could be like a physical thing, it could be a technical thing, it could be to do with the sled, it could be to do with your training, or it could be a mental thing or a trait about yourself or something. What would be your number one superpower?
It's kind of 2 probably mixed in.
Yeah.
It's basically that kind of self-awareness and gut feeling for me. So I think it's listening to your gut of that right and wrong. Listening, is this a good thing to do for me and my performance? Yes or no? Your gut tells you going out to this party at 10 o'clock at night is not a good thing to do. Okay, but I'm going to do it anyway, or I'm not. And that sort of links into, I think, that self-awareness of actually I'm becoming aware that I'm listening to the negative thoughts and I should be turning them into positive, or I'm becoming self-aware that I'm watching the other athletes too much. I need to stop doing that and concentrate on me. Actually, I need to ask for help or get the coach to support me. So I think it's all kind of linked in, and that for me is very much listening to that gut feeling inside of, okay, if I just sit here and listen, what sits well with me? What feels good? Do I think I'm doing the right thing here? And that has a knock-on effect of then all those other decisions, which I guess sort of is that psychology side of things. So that's what I would say. Yeah,
that's a great power to have, and great advice for somebody listening. One of the phrases that I have with the athletes I work with is feel the feeling until it goes away. People try to avoid their feelings sometimes, at their detriment. Sometimes you need to lean into it and listen to it. What is the feeling trying to tell me? And there's a lot of research done about the heart, the brain, and the stomach, and the nervous system. There's so many nerves in and around the heart, the brain, the stomach. I think in can't remember which book I was reading is talking about this, and there's as many neural networks in the human stomach as what there is in a cat's brain. So many people refer to the gut as second or third brain. It is communicating to us. Listen to your body. The mind and body are in this constant symbiotic kind of loop, feeding off each other, and not listening to your true self and not listening to your body, you ultimately you're pushing yourself further away from probably what yourself you need to do, which is only going to end in a bad place for somebody, isn't it, in the end?
Yeah, I am a very kind of emotional person. I feel things, I sense things, I read things, that is me. And so I think I do sense and learn quite a lot, either from other people or walking into a room, I'm kind of like, okay, I feel this, or again you feel it in your gut, or you as the athlete, like I really should have done that better, or I really shouldn't have done that, or I think that's a really important thing, and it takes time. I think it either comes naturally to you straight away, and I think for me, that is me, and then you learn from it as well. And I think some people do really have to tune into it and learn more to switch into that kind of zone.
Definitely. last question then. What's your definition or meaning of excellence, whether that be in sport or life? What's excellence to you?
Oh, I've never been asked that. That's quite a tough one.
Yeah.
That's really hard because I'm not sure I do have one particular. Striving to achieve your best. That might not be winning whatever. It might just be perfecting your skills and what you wanted to do. It could be a very, very simple thing. I want to have the perfect squat. I want to have the perfect start. I want to have the best technique running. It could be excellence is being the best in the world at that time and winning a gold medal. That's a really tricky one. I think, like we said before, I think a sort of athlete person or an ex-athlete, you're never quite happy, are you? Because you're always trying to get better and better and get that excellence. And you always feel like you could be better. And even at the Olympics, one of my runs, I'm like, I made mistakes. Like, that was not good. I could have been better. Yeah. I couldn't have been any better because I won the race. I think excellence is what's the word I want? Is executing your plan, is achieving those goals that you set yourself. And whether that's the smallest little goal day by day, that can still be excellence. That can still be what you wanted to achieve that day. I mean, excellence is a very strong term, but on the flip side, well, why shouldn't we use it a little bit more every single day? And take those small wins along the way and realizing I was excellent today. Like, I achieved my goals, and those little tiny goals every single day will, those little 1%, those little tiny goals, those little wins, small wins, little excellences every day will then mount up to become maybe that one big massive goal that you wanted to achieve. Yeah. I don't think I answered your question, but that's probably the best I can do right now.
No, you did, and you said a few things. And what I took from it is where you really started to hone in on it was first of all, you've got to set yourself a target, haven't you? If you don't have a target, then what are you going to achieve? You're just going to drift, and whether that is in sport or life, we all need to have targets. And if you don't set the intention, then you've got nothing to move your mind and body towards. And that might be a target for the day, multiple targets for the day. And by getting used to setting those targets, and sometimes you'll achieve them and sometimes you won't, but by setting them and going for them, as you then said, they stack up over time. That target that you did and achieved on a Monday, and the one that you did on a Thursday, and the one on a Sunday, and then they snowball, and you look back after a year, 2 years, and this progression that you've made over that time is a heck of a lot. And I think just generally at times people aren't specific enough, about what they want. You got to tune this mind in. You got to have the flexibility to know that it's not always going to go the way that you want it to go. But you've got to set the mind. It's like a sat nav. If you don't put the postcode in, how are you going to get anywhere? I want to go Cambridge, right? Well, whereabouts? Well, Cambridge. You just drive around, and you could get lost along the way. You need to know the target, and so that's what I took from what you said there, Amy. So thank you, and I just want to say thank you very much for giving up your time, especially when you're so busy. You got a family, so many other things that you're doing in your life, and thank you very, very much for coming on and giving up your time. I've absolutely loved it. I've not got through most of my questions. I was just enjoying what we were talking about so much. I could just keep going. I'm not going to do that to you, but it's been an absolute pleasure. Kind of learning more about yourself, and anybody who watches and listens to this, I know they're going to take so much from it. So thank you very much, Amy. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. You're very welcome.
So we'll leave it there, and I will see you soon. I'll see you on TV at some point, I guess. Not the skeleton anyway.
In TT, if you're interested in motorbikes, I think it's on ITV4.
Oh, right.
I'm part of the presenting team for the TT.
On the
Isle of Man.
Oh, right. Well, I'll check that out then. Thank you.
That's the next thing.
See you later.
Thank you. Cheers.
The Inner Game Podcast. Brought to you by the Science of Excellence. Unleash your power. Book your free consultation now.